What is my hair doing today? I don't know. Hi everyone, my name is Maddie and welcome back to my channel. Today I thought it would be fun to do another tag video since I haven't done one since the newbie tag. So today I'm going to be doing the Reader's Problem tag, which was created by About to Read. I will link the original video down in the description below. So the first question on this tag is, you have 20,000 books on your TBR. I don't think I have that many, but maybe I do. I don't know. I mean, I would love to read every book in the world. One of my fears is that I'll never have enough time to read it. All the books. Read it. I've read it. I didn't like it. Okay, this video is already a chaotic disaster. Point at hand. What is the question? How in the world do you decide what to read next? Okay. I think I'm very much a mood reader. How I'm feeling relates to what I want to read. So for example, if I'm struggling with something in my personal life, I want to read books about characters who are going through the same things to help me cope or live vicariously through them, I guess. So in some ways there's elements of that. So when I was first struggling with a lot of mental health issues, I was reading and engaging in a lot of books about that. Also, it just depends on what my energy level is like, I think. If I have a lot of focus and a lot of drive, I'm more likely to be able to get through a book that might be a bit more complicated or a bit more heavy. And if I'm kind of running on empty, it's books that are a little bit, I guess, I don't know if fluffier is the right word, but that are a little bit lighter to get through. So for example, YA books tend to, not always because they kind of get sloughed off, but some YA books tend to be a little bit easier reads. They're a little bit quicker to get through and less complicated, so I might lean towards that. Otherwise, the other things that come into impact is whether I have it. This is a big thing now that I'm away at school, because I don't always have I don't bring my entire library with me to school, so my reading choices aren't limited by what books I have or what my library has available on ebooks, because sometimes there's books that I really, really want to check out, but unfortunately my library only has them in physical copy, so I can't read them until I go home. Next question. You are halfway through a book and you're just not loving it. Do you quit or do you continue? I'm not a person to force myself to finish books. I'm trying to get more comfortable at having my ideas of books changed over time. Especially being an English major, there are books that I've read that if I was reading them not for class, I probably wouldn't have finished them, and that I didn't like when I finished them, but when we talked about it and analyzed it in class, I really enjoyed it. So I do try and give books the benefit of the doubt. However, if I'm halfway through a book and I'm not loving it, I'm probably going to bail on it. I don't want to say waste my time because that sounds so mean, but if it's a book that I'm personally not enjoying, there's so many other books out there that I would love to be able to read. I'm not going to force myself to finish something that I'm absolutely miserable reading. There are books that I've tried to read multiple times on different occasions and I just haven't been able to get through them, and I'm okay with that. I'm learning to get better at being yep, it's gonna be DNF'd, I'm not gonna finish it, and that's totally fine. There's no point torturing yourself through it. Especially classics, because some classics I love and some classics I've absolutely hated, but I feel there's this idea that reading classics makes you a better reader or smarter or something like that. And some books I am honestly I have no idea how this book has survived for as many centuries as it has, and other books I'm this is phenomenal, I completely understand. So I don't think there's anything inherently better in forcing yourself to get through them just to be oh, I read War and Peace. I have a friend who loves War and Peace. It's one of her favorite books, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be an enjoyable read for everyone. Question number 3. The end of the year is coming up and you're so close but so far away on your Goodreads reading challenge. Do you try and catch up, and how? So this is actually my very first year being on Goodreads. I really wish that I was on it earlier because I would love to have tracked all the books that I've read, especially last summer. I had quite a long commute to work, so I was reading a ton on the train, and I would have loved to have recorded all the books that I was reading throughout that summer. But we're here now, and I'm actually, I think I just checked the other day, 30 books over what my challenge was for this year. So my challenge was 50 books. However, I do have a bit of a competitive streak in me, even if the only person I'm competing against is myself. I did struggle sometimes with Goodreads this year where I was logging books and I would feel like I was cheating somehow. I found this particularly with graphic novels. So I reread all of Saga this year, but on Goodreads, there's like the 9 volumes. Okay, I'm gonna mess this up. There's 9 volumes, and then every 3 volumes is put into a book, so there's 3 books, or there's 1 compendium. I own the compendium, so I read it in compendium form. But if I logged it as the compendium, I got 1 book on my challenge. If I logged it as the volumes, I would have got 9, and if I logged it as the books, then I would have got 3 books on my challenge. So I found it hard to figure out how to log that to like best represent what I read throughout the year. And this seems to be like a thing with a lot of graphic novels. Most of them, they seem to have them like in the volume form. So some of them, like Heartstopper, they've just been published in 3 volumes, so that makes it super easy. I'm like, okay, so I read 3 books. But for those, I find it a little bit harder. Also, books that tend to be like 100 pages or 150 pages. Sometimes I was like, oh, should I really be getting a mark for this? But I think at the end of the day, like, if you're reading, you're reading. It doesn't matter what you're reading, and there like shouldn't be a hierarchy of what books are more or less valuable. So I think sometimes if I wanted to get to that goal and I was really struggling, I'd probably lean on graphic novels or shorter books to try and fill up some of that space, or maybe books that I know that I could get through quicker, like children's literature. Overall, I would try and catch up because I'm competitive as heck and I would want to be able to meet that goal. I've already been trying to figure out what my goal is going to be for next year. I don't really know if that answered the question, but we're just gonna go to the next one. Question 4. The covers of a series you love do not match. How do you cope? I buy the right covers. This is something that I actually recently ran into an issue with. I have bought the book Radio Silence 3 times, which is not as much as Paperback Dreams, because I think in one of her recent videos she says she has 5 copies of the book. But I bought it on ebook, which I realized I personally don't like buying books on ebook, because if I love the book, I like to have a tangible copy of it, and if I'm like not over the moon with the book, I'm fine like just having a library copy and giving it back. But for me, having books on my like Kobo isn't really my personal way to invest money in literature. That's just my thoughts. But at the beginning of the summer when I started using my Kobo again, I had bought a couple books on it and then regretted it later. But back to the story. So I bought Radio Silence on ebook. That was where I first read it. And then I was ordering some books on Amazon, or actually I think it was from Indigo, and Radio Silence was on sale, so I bought myself a copy of it. However, it has the US cover, not the UK cover, which doesn't match the rest of Alice Oseman's books. So then when I was ordering a book from the UK, one of her new ones, I actually put another copy of Radio Silence in the cart so that I can have the copy that matches all of them. So yeah, I like my books to match. The Harry Potter series that we have, it's not actually mine, it's my mom's, but all of them are hardcovers except for Philosopher's Stone, which irritates me because it just doesn't line up right on my shelf. But that one's not the end of the world. The only time that I think I would be okay with the covers not matching is I have the Neil Flambe series. I'll link my second Do You Have That Book challenge because I know that I show them there. And those books don't match. I think I have like 1 or 2 of them in paperback and the other one in hardcovers, but they've changed the way that the series is laid out so many times that I don't even know if I could get like a copy of it where they all match. Maybe I probably could. But the changes are like subtle enough that there's like slight changes in height or where the number of the series is on the spine that the series still looks complete even if they don't match exactly. So I think the only time I'd be able to be okay with them not matching completely is if there was a slight difference between them that wasn't like immediately recognizable, unlike that copy of Radio Silence that didn't match at all. I like my organization. I like my things to line up nice and pretty. This is part of the reason that I don't sort my books by color, even though I think it's really visually appealing when other people do it. The height differences throughout the shelves really irks me, so I haven't been able to sort my books that way. Question number 5. Everyone and their mother loves a book you really don't like. Who do you bond with over your shared feelings? This is difficult because I don't want to say I don't have a lot of people in my life that read books, but I don't have a lot of people that read to the extent the same books that I do or that I don't. So I think a lot of my like shared experiences is I've done it before where I've read a book that I've hated and I go on Goodreads and I like purposely look at the 1-star reviews just so that I can feel not alone in my feelings, or usually Tumblr, Pinterest, somewhere else on the internet I can find some of those people who also resonate with what I feel. Mostly I just rant to people who haven't read the book, who don't understand what I'm talking about at how much I didn't like this. This was the case when I read Red, White, and Royal Blue this summer because I know that book is incredibly popular. People love it. I read a bunch of 1-star reviews on Goodreads, and then while I was reading it, I was like taking notes about parts that I just thought were ridiculous, and I personally I found it funny and they weren't supposed to be funny. And I was like taking screenshots of my notes and sending them to my friends to be like, I need someone else to understand how ridiculous this book is with me. So sometimes I do that. I just force my bookish opinions on other people who probably don't care, but they're my friends, so I make them listen to me. Number 6, you're reading a book and you are about to start crying in public. How do you deal? I'm trying to think if this has ever happened to me before. I personally don't cry in movies. I think I've cried in about 3 movies in my entire life, but I do cry when I read significantly more. I think I would just cry. Maybe that's not right. But I did read constantly on public transit last year, and I don't remember ever reading a book that made me cry while on public transit. I did read The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. That's a pretty sad book, but I don't remember actively crying on the train. I more so get like weird secondhand embarrassment where sometimes I'm like, are people gonna judge me for the books that I'm reading? But I've mostly gotten over that. Yeah, I guess I would say just cry. Like, hopefully other book lovers on the train understand, but if not, oh well. I'm getting off in a couple stops anyways and probably won't see these people again. Number 7, a sequel of a book you love just came out, but you've forgotten a lot from the prior novel. Will you reread the book, skip the sequel, try to find a synopsis on Goodreads, or cry in frustration? I like cry in frustration at the end. This is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately because I read the Carry On series this summer and the next book is coming out next year. And I'm not, because I'm very invested in the fandom, I feel like I know and remember a lot of what happened, but I'm trying to decide whether I will reread. Rereading is something that I didn't do a lot when I was younger, personally, just because I found it really, I don't want to say boring, but I have a fairly good memory for like books and plots and what happens, so sometimes rereading books, I wasn't engaging with them the same way that I was reading them the first time. That being said, as I've gotten older and studied literature and had to reread a lot more, there are books in my life that I do like to reread because I think there is a lot there that can be pulled apart and analyzed, and I'm a nerd and I live for all of that stuff. So books like Alan Moore's V for Vendetta or Watchmen, I have read multiple times. Books that are like my favorite, such as Perks of Being a Wallflower, I've read multiple times. So I think in this case, it depends how invested I am in the series. Chances are, if it's a sequel of a book I loved, I will probably take my time to reread the first book, because I've had it before where I haven't reread and then I'm reading the sequel and I'm like, I don't even know what's going on, who are these characters anymore, and I think you lose the enjoyment for the series because of that. If I could find a synopsis and I felt like I had enough of an understanding that I wasn't going to miss out on the sequel, then I would leave it. But most likely, if it had been a while, especially if you read a book when it like first comes out and you gotta wait like a solid 2.5 years or however long it takes the author to write a sequel, probably worth the reread. Question 8. You do not want anyone borrowing your books. How do you politely tell people nope when they ask? Oh, this is one that I've actually struggled with in the past, because I lent books to someone who dog-eared the pages, and I'm not good with confrontation at all, but it made me want to cry. I think I just mostly try and like delay it long enough. I have like my people that I know that I can trust if I give them my copies of a book, and I'm okay with lending it to them, but otherwise I think I just kind of play it off like, oh no, I totally forgot to bring that book, or I'll drop it off next time I see you, and kind of hope they get the hint instead of blatantly outright being like, you are a disgrace to books, why do you do this, please don't touch mine. I hope that makes sense. We just don't like confrontation here. 9, reading. I don't like that. You shouldn't call it ADD if it's not actually ADD. Question number 9, you've picked up and put down 5 books in the last month. How do you get over your reading slump? I did talk about this recently. I did a little video on the reading slump, which I will link. I never know because the camera flips. I'm always like pointing at the wrong side than where the like cards come up. But anyways, I'll link it somewhere if you want to check out that video I did on the reading slump. One of the biggest things for me that I find helps me get out of reading slumps is graphic novels or webcomics, just because the visual medium is a little bit easier for me to kind of get through, even though like there's all sorts of effort and beautiful, gorgeous work put into it, and some graphic novels like V for Vendetta or Watchmen, you really do have to be thinking a lot to read them. They are fairly quick to get through because there's just less words on a page and more of a visual medium. So that's something that I usually do just to kind of get my brain like back into that mode of reading, or I read children's books or books that I know are a little bit shorter and easier to get through. Number 10, there's so many new books coming out that you're dying to read. How many do you actually buy? Probably all of them. I'm really bad for buying books. I think it depends on my capabilities to get them elsewhere. If I know that I can rely on my library to have them within a reasonable amount of time, then I will not buy the book. If I know that like a friend or someone else that I know is going to have a copy of the book that I can borrow off them, then I won't buy the book. But otherwise, I'm probably going to pick it up. It says specifically like that you're dying to read, and if I'm dying to read it, then I'm probably going to be purchasing a copy of it because I have a fairly good chance that I'm going to like the book. Though there is nothing more frustrating than spending like $30 on a brand new hardcover and then absolutely hating it. Especially because I keep my books in like mint condition, and sometimes if I've like finished the book in 2 days, I'm almost like, is it wrong of me to return this when I've already read it just because I hate it? I've never done it because I feel like there's a weird moral thing there, but I probably could get away with it. I think, long story short, probably most of them, unless I know for sure that I have another way that I can get the book within like a reasonable amount of time. And last but not least, question 11. After you've bought the new books you can't wait to get, how long do they sit on your shelf before you get to them? This is something I've improved on a lot over the years, especially with quarantine. I was like, okay, let's sit down and actually read the books on my shelf that I haven't read. And I realized that there's not that many books on my bookshelf that I haven't read. So nowadays it seems to be like I buy a bunch of books and then I read them, and then normally once I'm through that set or I only have 1 or 2 left, then I'll buy more. So I think now I would say we're probably like maybe like 1 to 3 months for me to get through those books. But there was a time historically in the past where I would buy books and they would just chill on my shelf forever. I do know for a fact that there are a couple books that are still on my shelf at home that I haven't read in years, or books that people got for me when I was like 12 that I don't even know if I'll enjoy anymore, because there's like good YA and then there's YA that's written where it like talks down to kids, which frustrates me, but it's really difficult to get through that kind of stuff now, and you like open it and the font is like this big and you're like, why? Just treat children like human beings. Yeah, there's a lot of tangents with my answers to these questions, but long story short, probably about a month to 3 months. I just bought some new books yesterday that I'll be filming a little video about them, so maybe we should set a timer and test this theory. Anyways, that's all that I have for today. If you would like to see me do more of these tag videos, please leave me a comment down below. Feel free to link a tag that you would like me to do. Otherwise, I'm hoping to have 2 more videos coming out pretty shortly before the end of the month, and then at the start of December I'll have my wrap up for the month. It's just been a crazy couple weeks, so I'm sorry that there's been a bit of a gap in content. Otherwise, in the meantime, if you want to follow what I'm reading, I will link my Goodreads down below, my art Instagram is there, and my blog, which I'm trying to update every Sunday. It's a little bit on and off. And until then, I will see you next time.